here tonight. Thank you.
So I thought I would start off with a drawing, a sketchbook. This is from the 80s, and I draw all the time, and I just thought I'd start with something very simple. I'm doing it. I'm doing the slides. I forgot. And I would make take a long time in the studio to make a painting that would come from that little drawing. The drawing would take minutes, and the paintings would take many months. And I'm going to show these are from the mid 80s, and I've got a bunch of them. And the reason I'm showing them, I'll just show you the next one, is that although my drawing, can you still hear me? The drawings are very simple, made with a few lines, and the paintings almost, I felt that they were trying to make the form, but without acknowledging the lines of the drawing. And so that I was trying to make the figure, I was trying to make the form out of the paint itself and not out of the drawing marks. So I was trying to almost like build up the whole atmosphere of the moment, of the perception of something I would see that I would be very interested in. And then this, probably one of the last ones. I'm not sure, not the last, but one of the last ones where I felt I had kind of reached an end game with this type of painting, and I was dissatisfied with where it could possibly go, and I realised that I love drawing, and that I should allow the line of the drawn line in the paintings. And at this moment in time, I'd moved to Switzerland. I lived in Zurich for 4 years, and so after this, it took me 18 months to get something that I was happy with, or that I thought was the right track for me. This painting, I call it Dreamer, 1996, I think it is. And this was the first painting that I allowed the line from the drawing to be actually in the painting. And I had a new studio in Switzerland, and I didn't take any paintings with me or any of my history apart from this little sketchbook that I happened to have on me, and I did this drawing a couple of days before I'd left New York. And this I don't have the drawing, but it was similar to the first with less lines. There was a little, back of a head. It's not really important, I don't think. But what was important for me was that I allowed the drawn line into the painting. I found a way with the brush to make the line that somehow was authentic to the emotional environment that that inspires me, and that I'm very that I really work to make it. Is it possible to make it? I mean, it's all part of it. Can you actually make a painting that can hold some kind of resonance of a moment that's for various reasons it's interesting to you? So this painting was the one that I should say, I'd worked for 18 months in the studio, and I was getting pretty frustrated, and finally for who knows what, I was able to make this. So it's quite important painting for me. And then I made a whole series based on this figure. These are larger paintings. The group were called Still. I think I've got maybe one more, or maybe not. Nope. And then I was not really up and running, but I got this red line, and it seemed very, very close to me. I was able to use it and make drawings, make paintings, and they were all becoming much closer, which is what I wanted. This little painting, it's a small painting, is called Fishmouth, and I was painting or drawing in a little sketchbook in the Alps. I used to go quite often to Alps in Switzerland, and at the weekends, and especially in the winter. and this was probably April or something, and March, maybe March, and some local guy walking in the mountain said to me, what are you doing, and what are you drawing? And I showed him, and he says, oh, all this was in German, of course. He said, oh, you're drawing a fish mouth. And I was like, I am. Since Swiss Zurich people and Glaswegians share the same, sense of humour, so we got on grand, and it turns out that they call them fish mouths because of the irregular shape of the snow melting. And he says, yeah, we look forward to seeing the fish mouths because they're the first sign of spring. And so this just, sort of harnessed whatever it was I thought I was doing, made it even more like I was on to it was like very poetic, and the metaphor was rich, and that this black hole could become something you look forward to, sort of reverse of what you usually imagine black holes and things like that. So this I should probably say I work thematically. I usually get a motif, and then I kind of exhaust it. I work for usually several years on a motif. In fact, the last one I think I've been on for 4 years at least. So anyway, so this is a fish mouth, and the sort of hole in the outline is, like drawing, you draw a form, but when you can reduce it to something so simple, it's not really a form, it's a negative space, and I get the snow is like the paper, on the page, and so they're very. I suppose I'm trying to make a very simple, not throwaway, but similarly throwaway, similar to a remnant, something maybe forgotten, something overlooked, and that's where my gaze usually goes. I'm very attracted to that area, rather than something that's obviously attractive. And then some other paintings from Zurich. This was a torso, very large painting. Something quite interesting, I can just go back to this guy. When I painted these, I had a very interesting studio that looked onto the river Limmat, which runs through Zurich, and I think maybe this is worth mentioning, I don't know, but the river runs by. The river is made from two bodies of water. One is from glacier fed from the lake, which is very clear, very blue, very clear water, and it meets this other river, the Ziel, and the Ziel comes from runs off the mountain, and it's very after the rain it gets very muddy and brown. And these two rivers, I don't know if anybody's ever saw this phenomenon. It happens several places. They run together, and they run simultaneously for miles and miles. And one side is clear, and the other side is brown. And there's a line down. It's incredible. And I was looking at my studio window, thinking I was hallucinating or something. And and came to the rescue another Swiss guy, and I asked him what's this about, and he explained the phenomenon to me. So this painting was painted at that time when I was in the studio. It was very dark and very reflective of the sort of landscape outside. And then I moved studios, and I moved to the other side of the lake, and it was all very. I was looking at the lake a lot, very transparent, very reflective, and it's a completely different atmosphere. And I think I realized for the first time how my physical environment actually informed my visual perception and how I made work, how the work looked without my control in a way. So it became, it was something else I could bring on board about this kind of physical, psychic environment, and how I, as a painter, how can I utilize that? How can I best work with that and adopt it. So anyway, so it's just worth the interest, I thought. This little painting, in fact, I think, no, it's not a very good resolution, but it's a small painting that I made at the beginning of the Yugoslavian conflict, civil war in Yugoslavia, and it's the borderlines of Serbia in the lower left, Kosovo at the top, and then at the right, Serbia. And I called it KOS. There's a play on the words, KOS for Kosovo, and KOS, CAUSE, for and I thought the lines, the boundary lines, the boundary conditions that we are all have to consider at least, and have to deal with, and the line is very important to me throughout my work, and in terms of the meaning of a line, the meaning of a boundary condition. Is it a form? So anyway, this very simple TV map try to explain a very inexplicable conflict in a way, and it allowed me to make some paintings that allowed me a way as a painter to deal with something that's extremely sort of traumatic. And head. Why did I put this head in? Even though I paint abstract paintings, I really come from a figurative background, and my training at Duncan and Jordanstone College of Art was very much figurative. The figures are always, and that's a gouache, water-based paint, as is this. So I think I've just put in a bunch of heads here, brush drawing. And this is another little sketchbook drawing, and that's a little watercolour that came after that. And that's cute, that's why I put it in. And this is my daughter. I think she was 4 or something when I did this. And funnily enough, she looks just like the mom right now, so I don't know what that means. And she looks much older than 4. But I remember thinking, well, I draw my daughter, I look at her all the time, and I was painting very abstractly. I thought, well, I'm allowed to paint my daughter, so I'll paint my daughter. So I did this painting, and then it was really upsetting to me because it was the best painting in the studio. So I had all these abstract, very, I imagine intellectual or something. I imagine that I've really put something into them, some brain work. And then this very simple, boom, 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 direct, perception-based, painting sort of work. So I've always got this. It's not a conflict and it's not a schism, but I guess it's a dialogue, between figuration and abstraction, and I don't mean it in any sort of Greenbergian sense. I'm really over that. I'm really interested in perception, and all the drawings I do are perception based. So the paintings are always about the perception. So, and I should have put some. Oh, this is funnily enough, this is a Madonna that's based on a medieval piece in the sculpture in the statue in the Metropolitan Museum in New York. I think it's French, 14th century, I think, something like that. And I often find the back much more revealing than the front of these kind of iconic images. And that's the painting in situ in a show in Duesseldorf. It's quite a large painting. I had a picture with a gallery dealer in it, but he's German and he's about 6'6", and it made the painting look much smaller. So, and this is the River Tay, which is a river that I used to, I know quite well, from a certain vantage point. Of course, it doesn't really look like the River Tay, but it's kind of another way of dealing with the line, or my way of dealing with the line. And this is a little drawing of a figure that's started off a whole bunch of work that I've been on for about 4 years, and it was called Holding Pattern. I mean, afterwards I can tell you where the images come from if you're interested. I don't think it's so important, but I don't mind talking about it. I think part of what painting can do is leave the object reality or the object situation that is, I don't know, very inclusive, and then you can take that and you can make it your own, you can make it something else, you can own it in a different way, and I think that's what's important for an artist or for the type of artist that I am. Rather than replication, which I'm not that interested in for me. I'm sure if I lived in former times I would be, but today it doesn't really make that much sense to me. Same motif. Another one, it's too bad it's dark, it's not a dark painting. These are quite large oil paintings. And that was the last big oil painting I actually did, and since then, it's probably about 6 months ago, I've been working on paper, almost exclusively on paper, with a brush drawing. And I've got hundreds of them, so I only put in a few here. I tried putting a variety. Same motif. I feel that they're sort of armatures or vessels for emotion. What the emotion is, I'm not going to try and talk about that. But that's what I feel my painting can do, or can potentially do. This motif, I've been working on this for a while. I don't know how many, but lots and lots. And it came from an Arabic motif, which I interpreted as an angel. I don't think it was an angel, but they do have angels in Arabic art. But I changed it a little bit, and it just, to me, it was like an angel image for whatever reason. So I'm still working on this. I've got many more. I think I've got a lot more to do with it. And this is a little hole in the snow, but it was a melted motif on a rooftop. The snow melted in a very funny envelope shape or something. And I've got lots of this one too, but I just put this one in. And that's the simplest one brush stroke. I do a lot of these for whatever reason. They're also so primal. Cup rings, you get them in the sandstone, so they go back to the earliest times. I finished with a picture on my wall because the wall's always better than my work. And I'm sure most of you who paint probably know that feeling. And I think that's me. I think I'm, yep.
Lex will take any questions if you have them.
So tell us about the emotion in your work.
Who said that? No. Next question. I think they're open. I'm not trying to impose. They're meant to be open, and that's really the idea. That they are, that they have something in the attraction that I have to, say, the motif or or a place, an environment, and I want them to have that. Beyond that, they're not particular per se.
Why have you shifted to paper from canvas?
From the oil painting,
Yeah.
I didn't mean to. It wasn't a deliberate choice. Why? I don't know if I can answer it truthfully. At a certain point, I just really enjoyed it, and I was just going with it, and then until what day is it? On Friday, someone came to the studio and they bought something from the early red line paintings. They bought an early painting, and you get stuff out and it's wrapped up and you haven't seen it for a long time. And then I realised something else I wanted to do with that. And so they left on Friday. They came Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I made up eight surfaces for oil painting. But I do very traditional ground. It takes a few weeks for the ground to dry. So they'll be ready, probably next week or 2 weeks. So I'm ready again, But I'm not so deliberate. I wouldn't not paint oil painting because I've told myself that. It would just kind of organically happen.
So you were talking about how you, I don't know if you'd simplify is the word, but it seems like you
I like
also
simplify.
work on things for a really long time, and I'm just sort of thinking about that tension between a lot of marks and paring it down and being as simple as possible. That there's
Yeah, I find it the hardest thing to do is to make, like those like that one, the circle. I make hundreds of them. There's only a couple any good. Like, why is that? Why is that? And I'm very what's the word? I like Eastern aesthetics as well as Western aesthetics. I like both, right? So I like calligraphy, but I have no pretense to be a calligrapher, and I don't want to be either. But I want to use the brush in a certain way that there is something I get from that, and it's got something to do with the integrity of the mark. It's the same in a drawing, and there's a certain moment when that is happening, and I'm sure everybody in their own medium knows exactly what I'm talking about. And so it takes me sometimes, whatever, long, 9 months to, over a year to make one painting that might have that. But often when I work so long on something, the very next painting happens so, because you've done it all. But then you exhaust that. It doesn't. It's I found as you get you do it more and more that if you can read your own sort of energy, your own like potential, you can start to work with yourself rather than working against yourself. So hopefully they're getting less and less tortured, in that way. Like the early paintings are so tortured, Of course I didn't think so at the time. But when I look at them, I'm like, why make 5 billion paintbrush marks, And part of the reason is because you can't stand not to. And so now, I'm being serious, and now I can stand not to. I can sit in the room and not paint. And so that maybe that gets back to the paper. I'm allowing myself. I think oil painting for me became a way of dealing with anxiety or the work, everything. I could paint and then I'm okay. And at a certain point, that wasn't a good enough reason. So.
You were talking about the red line paintings being an armature for emotion, and I'm wondering if I think of the figure as being the ultimate armature for that, and I'm wondering if about that dialect.
Sprechen Deutsch.
But
Papier,
is it-
bitte.
Is it something you don't want to do, or is there a reason for shunning the figure?
Oh, I don't. No, I don't think so. No, I don't. I mean, I don't think I'm. Okay, maybe it's got to do with that we're in the 21st century, and we are in the 21st century. It's 21st century, and that painting a certain way, a certain like figurative painting, I really. It's not that I shun it. It's just that when I do it, I feel it's not. It's not justifiable to me personally. That's not what painting, for me, only from my opinion, that painting can maybe deal with the figure, but in a way that it's important that the medium, is working for its own sake and not for some former sake, some former traditional. I mean, I'm such a traditionalist, so when I say the word, it reminds me of folk music. There was a time in the 70s when Scottish folk music was having a, was going around a lot, and young people were going to see it, right? But there was almost two types of folk music going on. There was the folk music that was just doing the old songs, bashing out the same stuff, and it was pointless. But then there was another folk music that was interpreting. And so how do you interpret the figure, I guess is what I'm interested in. But not just the figure, the motif. The motif could be anything. I mean, I've worked on, I work in landscape a lot. I mean, I try to keep this is me trying to keep it tight. I try to keep this quite coherent and not go all over the place. But I've worked on shapes for forms of a mountain ridge, and I've drawn them shaped between, say, two mountains coming together. Well, it could be a tree. It could be the same image. Could be in a human figure. It could be in a tree. It could be in a plant life. Or anything organic. So, I don't know. For me, I just want something really simple. I mean, really, 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 like the space, just whatever. We all do it, right? We just keep moving. I'm interested in that. I'm very interested in that. I'm interested in why we do things, and that reason why. Why do we make it like this? Like that. How is that okay? And this is just no, that's not okay. And we're all artists are all like that. I love the story about Giacometti. He's in bed trying to sleep, and he's like, then he gets up and he moves his slippers. Then he goes back to bed and he gets up again and he moves them again under the bed. I think that's just great.
I was reading, and we were talking a little bit before your talk about how you do collaborative work, and particularly that you've been influenced. Your biggest influence is this performance artist, and so I'm wondering if you could.
Allan Kaprow?
Yeah.
Is it happening? Yeah. Alan's a great human being, and great artist, but he's also a terrific painter. I mean, total naturally gifted painter. And I remember seeing a painting of his. I think he was 14 or 15, and it had understood the whole of art history, modern art, the whole of modern art. He was so educated, so just well grounded in art, completely educated, and its art education is so difficult because there's so many, because of tradition, I think, because people, they want to adhere to tradition so much that they end up teaching it in a way like some of the folk music I was talking about happens. So, right, what's well, Alan's direction is not my direction. I still want to paint, Alan's dead now, but Allan, he found a direction for him, and he really did something, and that what he did still resonates with me, and still expands. It's not finite. And that's what he was doing. He was trying to make something that well, I can't say that's what he was doing, I take that back. What his work does for me is that it continues to expand, and that's what I like. But I could say the same of the English painter Leon Kossoff. I love his, especially his paintings that he's doing now of the cherry tree in the back garden. They expand a possibility for painting for me too. I'm interested in whatever expands my interest. And I was telling you, I'm working now with a dancer, and the movement and the gesture are as important to me as a brush gesture. So I'm just interested, but I want to paint because I think painting is still relevant, not reactionary relevant, but as a medium, as a language, potentially. If not me, someone else. I believe in it. I don't think, and so when I see painting that's trying to compete with a photograph, I think that's the wrong. They shouldn't be doing that.
When you say you're working with a dancer, what's happening?
Well,
What's the dancer doing with you?
well, I can talk about that, but I probably don't want to, because I'm in the process, and it's like I'll let the steam out the kettle, and I won't it won't be right. I won't, I'll just go somewhere in here, Not, and that might be great, right? But I need to just keep this,
What about a past love? Could you talk about something you've done in the past?
Oh, yeah, sure, definitely. I think 2 years ago, or is it 2010? Is that? Oh, that's like 4 years ago, almost. Well, 3.5 years ago. I worked with a friend of mine's actress, really good actress, Emily, but her stage name is Eve. Eve Best. I don't know if you know. And Eve is a very creative actress, and she wanted to do As You Like It, Shakespeare's big. In fact, she's the director of the Globe in London right now, and she took one of my little, these cup of kindness drawing I gave her once, and she put it in the program. I should have brought it. She put it in the program in the Globe in London. Very nice. Anyway. I painted a 40-foot by 40-foot stage set for the piece, but the whole piece was improv. So nobody had rehearsed. Everybody had the thing they were going to do. My thing, I was going to paint this 40 feet by 40 feet, but all these actors were going to be on it, and we had no rehearsal. It was going to be one right through. It was filmed a little bit, and it was like the table like this. And everybody was just sitting around in like 3-4 deep all the way around. Very intimate, select audience, whatever, in some loft in Soho, in New York. And so I had mixed up, I had all my paint and brushes and stuff ready to go. I had no idea what I was going to do. I was thinking, it'll come to me, and of course it doesn't come to you, So I thought, well, I'll start with my red line. I'll walk around, and it'll start coming to me, like this. And then at one moment, an actress, one of the actors who I didn't know, this actress, and she came up to me, and she had a bowler hat on, and she was like 8 months pregnant, this lady, and she was doing whatever she was doing, and she just walked past me, and she went like that, and put it in my head, and it was transformative. When she put it in my head, all of a sudden I could be the painter in character painting this, and it worked. It was incredible, and I also had this theatrical experience. I realized what it was to be an actor. I thought I could be a painter. I couldn't be a painter. I was on stage. You can't be a painter, So when you put the hat on me, I became a guy being a painter, the other guy. And it was very strange. It was and I really liked it, right? The strange thing is I liked it. I mean, it was terrifying. And when I did it, I was not having a good time. I was completely uncomfortable the whole time, right? And then this is the strange part. And then it was done, and I ended up painting a moon, and I painted two lovers, and all sorts, and vines, and it was all with them. There was opera singers, and it was all it wasn't me alone. This is the part I loved. It wasn't me alone in the studio, which I'm so used to. That's, the solitary life. And anyway, so that was one experience. And then afterwards, other people loved it. The audience. Well, I don't know an audience. I'm a painter. What's an audience? A collector comes and buys a painting, or you have an opening. It's completely, another thing. So anyway, I in some future, I imagine bringing something in that realm. I don't know how to do it yet, but I'm working with a dancer, and I'm very open. Or I work hard at being open. I work very hard at it. Not to allow stereotypes to block me, so.
Did you keep the hat?
I wish I could have. I know. And I also had this green brushstroke on my nose, which I had no idea about until I saw the pictures afterwards. And it must have happened right away, like something like that. I don't know. And it was so funny. But, and can I tell you about another collaboration?
Yeah.
I worked with this, an artist I'd never seen. She lives in, where does she live? Sana'a. Where's Sana'a? Yemen. Yemen. And she couldn't get a visa to come to New York. It was for a triangle workshop. It was their 30th anniversary. And they had 30 artists lined up. And she couldn't come, right? So for some reason, they called me up. The triangle called me up. This is so funny. They called me up and said, do you want to have a studio? You get a free studio, and you come in, because I'd been before, right? I'm alumni, whatever it is. And I said, no, I have a studio. Why do I want to come and poke your little hole? No, I didn't say that. I said, no, I don't. And they were like, you'd really be helping us, blah, blah. And I said, look, I'm going to have a shower. Let me think about it. So I have a shower, and it just came to me. The artist should still do something in the studio. So I said, listen, I'll do it if I can work with the artist, if I can collaborate with the artist. So I think there was 14 days. It was like 10 days to go by the time we figured this out. And I Skype. Well, we don't Skype. Her Skype's cut off. We phone, and she sends. We have a conversation. We have a dialogue. And a lovely person. We've never met. And I tell her what I'm interested in. She tells me what she's interested in. She sends me pictures, and I make a sort of environment from her neighborhood, right? Images to respect her space. But then this is great. This is what happens, right? So, I mean, I don't know if I can talk about this, but the guy next door, the neighbor, there's two neighbors. They get this little space divided in three. One neighbor is a South Korean artist, totally respectful, like totally not, like this, doing her thing, brilliant, absolutely technically fantastic video she makes, great. The other guy, and any Israelis in the room, please forgive me, but the other guy's from Israel, right? And he decides because, what's her name? Salwa Al-Aryani hasn't shown up, so he should have her space, right? So he's like, I know, and it's incredible, right? So he's moved, he's started occupying, like her territory, and so I'm like, wow, So, and every time I come in with, my work's going real slow. I'm making plaster. I'm making straw and mud and plaster that I'm going to paint on, and it's going really, it's very slow, but it's all going to. I know it's all going to happen, right? It will happen somehow. And so each time I have to tell him, could you please, And then this is a great moment. I said to him. I explained that, Sal, it's her space, And he said to me, I can see how you could think that. And I thought that was brilliant, in terms of Middle East politics, and every other politics that have conflict. I was like, wow, I'm Scottish, sort of empirical, I think we can, this is it. And it's like, whoa, we just were like this. So I made a wire mesh wall, like transparent steel mesh that came down and then was off, didn't touch the floor, quite touch the floor, and it curled, but you couldn't go through it without cutting yourself, you know? And so this was, you know, and then I made a plaster window that you can't see through from one of those crescent, you know, they make the crescent from the moon shape, right? They do, and so I made one of those windows and I did that. And I got into it. I got real, and Salwa was into it, and we were, you know, and I'm talking about the neighbour, the noisy neighbour. And it was great. It was totally great because it was like trying to find a way of dealing with something that was so invasive, and that there are ways, and that art is possible. That art can do something. So I like to imagine, you know, with, you know, it was totally peaceful. And I liked the guy wasn't a bad guy. He was just trying to get, in his, I think if I can imagine to him, from him it was like he's in New York and he's going to get as much as what he can get from, you know, the apple. And that's all he was doing. He was being, you know, he was just acknowledging his own whatever. It was so funny. So we had to be very crafty. Yeah.
I've been talking to people about like the rules and restrictions that artists function under, and I mean, it sounds like you respond to in a space or an environment or a situation so strongly. I'm wondering if you set rules for yourself.
Yeah, I think I'm really disciplined and very rigorous in that area, but I am affected by an environment, and this, when I did this piece with Salwa, the environment, you know, it started to speak, you know, I started to work with that environment, and then I guess a discipline makes it happen. I mean, you can't, it doesn't just happen, you have to make it happen. And I think I've got a good work ethic, you know, grew up with that Scottish stuff. I mean, it's terrible, it's really like, you know, terrible stuff, but, you know, it can work for, you can make it work. I can make it work for me. You know, sometimes it works against me. Like especially earlier days where I'd feel guilty if I wasn't working. You know, so you like make yourself work, and it's impossible to legislate. Sometimes you should make yourself work, and sometimes you shouldn't. And who, you know, everybody has to figure that out. So the rules are just to break them, right? If you make the rule, break it. You know, I mean, I'm sure that somebody said that. You know, it's just one of those. I think it's John Cage or something said that. But I'm sure, you know, he heard it somewhere. Someone else said it. You know. You good?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.